the numbers aren't looking good. More than half of the adult US population has diabetes or prediabetes. Meaning, if you take 2 random people, one of them is at least pre-diabetic already. And other Western countries like Canada and the UK aren't that far behind, where 1 in 3 people are at least pre-diabetic. The scary part is 80% of people with prediabetes don't even know they have it. That's exactly where my coaching client Caesar found himself. He didn't know he was already pre-diabetic until his doctor delivered him the bad news. But here's the thing. There are actually signals you can spot to know if you're trending towards this debilitating disease. So in this video, I'm going to show you the top 10 pre-diabetes signs you need to know. And make sure to stick around until the end because I'm also going to give you an unbelievably powerful hack that nobody is talking about. This one hack worked so well for Caesar, he lost 5 inches off his waist and completely reversed his condition. Now, in case you're wondering, prediabetes means your blood sugar is higher than normal, but not yet high enough to be considered type 2 diabetes. But you're absolutely trending the wrong way. It's generally caused by eating too much refined grains, processed sugar, and other ultra-processed food that's cooked and or contains ultra-processed cheap oil, combined with poor lifestyle choices like lack of quality sleep and a sedentary lifestyle. It's a recipe for disaster. Because having prediabetes opens up Pandora's box and puts you at an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, kidney disease, Alzheimer's, and even cancer. That's why it's absolutely crucial to get ahead of it before it's too late. The first visible sign that you might already have prediabetes is darkened skin in the folds of your body, like your neck, armpits, and groin area. A lot of people think that's normal, but it's actually a prediabetes symptom. The next sign is you have dysregulated appetite and hunger signals. An increased appetite, also known as polyphagia, can be a sign of chronically high blood sugar. Again, chronically high blood sugar can lead to prediabetes. If you can't go a few hours without being hungry, you feel like you need a snack because you're crashing, you get hangry, and you get these wild mood swings in between meals, that is a very strong sign of prediabetes. The next prediabetes sign is fatigue and feeling sleepy all the time. Especially after you eat, you feel like you need a nap. That is a great indicator of poor glucose tolerance. Another prediabetes sign in this umbrella is having cognitive issues. You're just not as sharp, you start to become forgetful. You can't remember where you parked or where you left your keys. Some people attribute that to aging, but it's actually a strong sign of prediabetes because poor blood sugar regulation affects the brain in a negative way. This is why Alzheimer's is often referred to as type 3 diabetes. It's insulin resistance in the brain. The next prediabetes sign is dry mouth. It's a common symptom of high blood sugar and is often the first noticeable symptom of diabetes. Chronic dry mouth can then cause bad breath, cracked or chapped lips, loose teeth, mouth sores, and trouble chewing or talking. Here's the kicker. The common solution for people with bad breath from their dry mouth is by using mouthwash. Remember Caesar? He was a regular mouthwash user because of his dry mouth. Turns out, if you use mouthwash at least twice daily, you're 55% more likely to develop prediabetes or diabetes over 3 years. Because mouthwash takes out the bad breath causing bacteria, but at the same time, it takes out your entire oral microbiome, including the beneficial microbes. That's not a good thing. The next prediabetes sign is slow healing. If you get a cut and it takes forever to heal, that's a strong indicator of prediabetes. And diabetes, in case you didn't know, is the #1 cause of amputation because of poor blood flow. If you have poor blood flow, and that can also manifest itself as numbness and tingling in your fingers and toes, another prediabetes sign, your tissues can get damaged and an infection can develop and spread to the bones. Once that happens, amputation is the only option to prevent more damage. The next signs are excessive thirst and frequent urination. Frequent urination can be caused by high blood sugar and is one of the main symptoms of diabetes. This may also be connected to excessive thirst, which is another common symptom of prediabetes. They kind of feed off of each other. The next sign is blurred vision. This is another one of those things that's become normalized as part of aging, but it's not normal. Having blurred vision is a strong sign that you might have prediabetes. And over time, people with diabetes may be at an increased risk of developing retinopathy, which can eventually lead to blindness if left untreated. Type 2 diabetes is actually the #1 cause of blindness. What's fascinating is you can have all the signs I've mentioned so far, but your blood sugar might not be alarmingly high. This is where it gets tricky even for people who do a yearly checkup and get their blood sugar tested. The most common test is an A1C blood test. It measures your blood sugar levels over the last 3 months to monitor your risk of prediabetes or diabetes. Normal is 5.7 or below. Prediabetes is 5.7 to 6.4, and diabetes is above 6.5. But that's standard of care. So let's shift our focus from the conventional way of detecting prediabetes, which is failing miserably, and what you need to do instead to get way ahead of it. Again, the most common way to detect prediabetes is when blood sugar is higher than normal, but not as high as a diabetic. Again, that's an A1C between 5.7 and 6.4. It's a very tight range. Remember, more than half of the US adult population has diabetes or prediabetes, and it's 1 in 3 people in Canada and the UK. But 80% of those with prediabetes don't even know they have it. That's where the gap is. But why is that? It's because we're taught to myopically focus on measuring blood sugar. But blood sugar is something that the body works unbelievably hard to keep in a very tight range. If your blood sugar drops too low, for example, you run the risk of passing out. If your blood sugar is chronically high, you get prediabetes. For context, the human body only contains 4 grams or less than a teaspoon of sugar in the blood. That's it. And again, it works unbelievably hard to keep it at that number. So if you measure something that's tightly regulated, you're only going to see changes when the system is completely off the rails. That's why even for people that measure their blood sugar, it comes back normal for years, even though they're already exhibiting all the signs of prediabetes I've mentioned so far. Do you see the disconnect? But the way the body keeps your blood sugar down is with a hormone called insulin. Way before you get prediabetes, you actually start having chronically high insulin first, which leads us to the most important sign that leads to prediabetes: elevated fasting insulin. So if you ask your doctor to measure fasting insulin along with blood sugar, you're actually going to see how hard your body is working at keeping your blood sugar down. That is the true measure of insulin resistance, which causes prediabetes. If you eat a healthy diet and live an active lifestyle, the relationship between blood sugar and insulin is balanced. But if you do the opposite, you start eating the foods I mentioned earlier and you live a sedentary lifestyle, give it a few years, and you might see your insulin 2 to 3 times higher than normal. But your blood sugar is still in the normal range. So if you only get your blood sugar tested, your doctor tells you, yeah, you're fine, keep doing what you're doing. But in reality, your body is working 2 to 3 times harder at keeping your blood sugar down, like something is already off. So if your doctor only measures blood glucose, which is what happens 95% of the time, this metabolic dysfunction alarm in the form of high fasting insulin gets completely missed. Give it a few years and you can have 3, 4, or even 5 times higher fasting insulin levels than normal, hence leading to insulin resistance. And then you get the prediabetes diagnosis. By the time you're fully diabetic, you're looking at a fasting insulin of 25. If you think about a car, only focusing on blood sugar to detect prediabetes is kind of like saying the car is running completely fine without opening the hood and getting your oil changed regularly. Give it enough time and that car is eventually going to break down because you're not looking at what's underneath the hood. But all this time, it looks totally fine from the outside. Whereas if you focus on measuring fasting insulin instead, you'd know where you are on the scale. You'd know if your body or our metaphorical car engine is starting to break down, because the range for fasting insulin is 2.6 all the way up to 24.9. That's a tenfold difference. And according to the leading experts in metabolic health, you want to stay anywhere between 2 to 6 microunits per milliliter, but definitely stay under 10. Whereas glucose has a very tight range. So if you measured insulin, you'd get a way more accurate state of your metabolic health. The problem is, it rarely gets measured. You can either ask your doctor to test it. If your doctor doesn't want to run the test, you need a new doctor. You can also just pay out of pocket. It's a $25 test and it could potentially save your life. Let's go back to Caesar. His doctor did not measure his fasting insulin despite showing all the signs of prediabetes I've mentioned so far. Until one day he magically gets diagnosed with prediabetes seemingly out of nowhere. That became his wake-up call, and that was also the time when he joined the Fat Loss Accelerator VIP. And if you want to work with me as well, you can book a free consultation by clicking the link in the description and comments below. But outside of making proper dietary changes, there's one key factor that really moved the needle for him. He started to incorporate a consistent walking routine because research has shown that walking is twice as effective for managing high blood sugar compared to prescription blood sugar medication. This is especially true if you do multiple 10-minute walks rather than one long walk at the end of the day. Your goal is to walk a minimum of 8,200 steps spread throughout the day. It's about an hour of purposeful walking. And again, it's better if you break it up. And after 90 days of doing just that, Caesar was able to reverse his prediabetes and lose 5 inches off his waist in the process. Life-changing to say the least. I mean, look at the smile on his face. And if you want to learn more about the amazing benefits of walking, then you don't want to ignore this video. I'll see you there.